In a busy park, a millionaire becomes desperate when he loses sight of his son. When he suddenly finds his son crying, to his surprise, a 6-year-old beggar girl was bandaging the wound he had just gotten. Intrigued, the man asks, "Who taught you this?" "It was Mommy, she was a nurse," replies the girl, mentioning a woman's name that made the millionaire almost faint upon hearing it. What he discovers next about this child completely changes the course of his life and reveals a secret he never imagined possible. The late afternoon sun gilded the leaves of the trees when Richard Miller parked his BMW in the reserved spot at Magnolia Park. At 42, the businessman had everything under control: his 8-figure fortune, his 3 expanding companies, his mansion in the most exclusive part of town. Everything except the unease that grew in his chest whenever he had to spend time with Gabriel, his 4-year-old son. "Daddy, can I go on the slide?" The sharp little voice cut through his thoughts. As he checked messages on his phone, Richard looked up, watching the boy bounce impatiently beside him, his blonde curls shining in the sunlight. "Sure, Gabby, but don't go out of my sight." His voice carried the authority of someone used to giving orders, even to a child. The park buzzed with activity. Families spread out on the lawns, children running among the playground equipment, vendors offering ice cream and popcorn. Richard chose a strategic bench where he could keep an eye on Gabriel while responding to urgent emails. On Sundays, when he had custody of his son, he tried to balance parenthood with the business demands that never ceased. Gabriel ran towards the playground, his crystal-clear laughter echoing through the air. Richard smiled discreetly. That sound was one of the few things that could break through his emotional armor. He went back to typing on his phone, negotiating a contract that would yield millions for his construction company. 15 minutes later, when he looked up again, the sandbox was empty. "Gabriel!" His voice came out louder than he intended. He stood up quickly, his eyes scanning every corner of the playground. "Gabriel!" Panic washed over him like a cold wave. He started running among the equipment, asking other children if they had seen his son. Some shook their heads. Others simply ignored him, absorbed in their play. "Gabi, where are you?" His voice now held pure despair. His hands were shaking as he dialed park security. In his mind, terrible scenarios unfolded: kidnapping, accidents. His fortune made him an obvious target for criminals. He ran towards the small lake, his heart pounding so hard he felt the pulse in his temples. The mirrored water reflected his pale and distraught face. There was no sign of Gabriel. "Please, God, no," he murmured, now running towards the back of the park, where the brush was thicker. That's when he heard the crying. He followed the sound desperately, pushing aside branches and going through a small patch of woods. On the other side, he found a clearing where a few children were playing far from parental supervision. And there, sitting on the ground with a scraped and bleeding knee, was Gabriel. "Daddy!" The boy held out his arms, tears rolling down his rosy cheeks. Richard ran and knelt beside his son, quickly checking for other injuries. "My God, Gabby, you scared the life out of me. How did you hurt your knee?" "I tripped on a tree root when I was running. It hurt a lot, Daddy." That's when Richard noticed the girl. She was kneeling beside Gabriel, her small hands delicately holding a piece of clean cloth she had torn from her own shirt. With precise and careful movements, she was cleaning the blood from the boy's wound, murmuring words of comfort. "Don't cry anymore, okay? It won't hurt much longer." Her voice was sweet, but there was a strange maturity to it. Richard watched in astonishment as the child made an improvised bandage, tying the cloth around Gabriel's knee with the skill of someone much older. She must have been about 6, but her movements were precise, almost professional. "Who taught you how to do that?" The question slipped out before he could think. The girl raised her face to him for the first time. She had huge brown eyes, dark wavy hair tied back with an old elastic band, and visibly worn clothes. Her bare feet were dirty with soil. Mommy did. She was a nurse. Richard's world stopped. The name that formed on the child's lips made his blood run completely cold. Marina Silva. The name left the girl's lips like a direct arrow to Richard's chest. 7 years. It had been exactly 7 years since he'd heard that name last. 7 years since Marina had disappeared from his life without explanation, leaving only a cold note on the table of the apartment they shared. I need to leave. Don't look for me. Richard felt his legs go weak. The girl continued to take care of Gabriel's injury, oblivious to the emotional earthquake she had caused in the man in front of her. He calculated mentally. 6 years old, Marina had left. 7 years ago. The timing coincided perfectly. What was your mommy like? His voice came out hoarse, almost inaudible. She smiled, a sad but loving smile. She was the most beautiful person in the world. She had long hair that shone in the sun, just like mine, and her hands were magical. She healed everyone at the City General Hospital where she worked. Richard closed his eyes. Marina, the brown, hair that ran through his fingers on lazy Sunday mornings. The delicate hands that touched him with such tenderness, the same hands that saved lives at the City General Hospital where she worked as a nurse. My name is Sophia, the girl continued, helping Gabriel stand up. And you're the little boy's daddy, right? He's very brave. He didn't cry even a little bit when I cleaned his scrape. Sophia. Marina always said that if she had a daughter, she would name her Sophia because it meant wisdom. Children are born with a wisdom that we adults lose along the way, she would say, stroking her imaginary belly as they dreamed together of a future that never came. Daddy, Sophia is like the angels Mommy tells stories about. Gabriel pulled on his father's shirt sleeve, bringing him back to the cruel reality. She took care of me when you weren't here. The word Mommy made Richard choke. Clarissa, his current wife, was a wonderful woman, but she had never been able to inspire the same fascination in Gabriel that this little stranger had in just a few minutes. Thank you for taking care of my son, Richard murmured, picking up. Gabriel in a sudden hurry. He needed to get out of there. He needed to think. He needed to escape the truth that was unfolding before his eyes. Wait! Sophia ran after him as he hurried towards the car. The little boy needs to change the bandage tomorrow, and you have to clean the wound well, otherwise it could get infected. He stopped, looking back. Sophia was standing in the middle of the path, her thin arms swinging at her sides. There was something familiar about her gestures, the way she tilted her head when she spoke, the genuine concern in her eyes. How do you know that? He asked, even though he already knew the answer. Mommy taught me a lot before she went to live with the angels. She said I had to take care of people just like she did. Richard felt the world spin. Marina was dead. His Marina, who laughed too loud in movie theaters, who danced barefoot in the kitchen while making breakfast, who cried watching dog commercials on TV. Dead. Come on, Gabby. We have to go home. His voice came out harsher than he intended. But Daddy, what about Sophia? Doesn't she have anyone to take care of her? Yes, I do. Sophia approached, smiling at Gabriel. I have Grandma Dulcie. She lives with me in a small place, but it's very cozy. Richard put Gabriel in the back seat of the car, his hands trembling, as he buckled the seatbelt. When he turned to say goodbye, Sophia had disappeared among the trees in the park. On the way home, Gabriel didn't stop talking about the pretty girl who took care of my scrape. Each word was a stab in Richard's chest. He made up excuses, changed the subject, turned up the radio, but nothing could silence his son's voice or the ghosts that had resurrected in his mind. Daddy, did you know Sophia's mommy? The innocent question almost made him lose control of the steering wheel. Why do you ask that, son? Because you looked like those cartoons when the character sees a ghost, all white and with big eyes. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. Lying next to Clarissa, who slept peacefully, he stared at the ceiling and saw Marina's face form in the shadows. He remembered the last fight they had, when she had mentioned something about responsibilities. And growing up, he had replied that he wasn't ready for changes, that his life was already perfect the way it was. The next morning, she had left. Now, 7 years later, a 6-year-old girl was watching him with the same brown eyes as Marina, carrying the same gift for taking care of people that her mother possessed. And Richard had no idea what to do with this information that could destroy the entire life he had built. Breakfast at the Miller mansion unfolded in a tense silence. Clarissa, elegant even in her silk robe, was flipping through a home decor magazine while drinking her green tea. Gabriel was playing with the cereal on his plate, clearly bored with the morning routine. "Daddy, are we going to the park again today?" The question came with a hopeful smile. Richard almost choked on his coffee. "No, son, we have other plans today." "But you promised we'd play there whenever I wanted." Gabriel's voice took on a whiny tone. "And I want to see if Sophia is okay. Does her knee hurt like mine did?" "Who's Sophia?" Clarissa looked up from her magazine, curious. "A girl who took care of Gabby at the park yesterday," Richard replied quickly, avoiding going into detail. "Just some kid playing around." "She's not just some kid," Gabriel protested indignantly. "She's special. She knows how to take care of scrapes like real doctors." Clarissa smiled. "How sweet. Children always have such fertile imaginations, don't they, darling?" She returned her attention to her magazine, uninterested. Richard forced a smile, but inside he felt like he was being crushed by an invisible weight. All night he had fought against the urgent need to go back to the park. Part of him wanted to never set foot in that place again, pretend Sophia didn't exist, that Marina had never been a part of his life. But another part, a part he was desperately trying to suppress, needed to see her. Again, he needed to be sure. After dropping Gabriel off at school, Richard drove aimlessly through the streets of the city. His morning meetings had been cancelled. For the first time in 10 years, he had made up an excuse not to work. His partners would be surprised. Richard Miller never missed work, never put personal matters above business. But today was different. Today, the past had returned to haunt him in the form of a 6-year-old girl with eyes he knew very well. At 10:30 in the morning, he found himself parking in the same spot as the day before. The park was quieter during the week, only a few mums with strollers and seniors feeding pigeons on benches scattered along the path. He walked slowly to the playground, his heart pounding fast. He wasn't sure what he expected to find, but it certainly wasn't the scene that unfolded before his eyes. Sophia was sitting alone on the swing, but she wasn't swinging. Her small shoulders were shaking, and even from a distance, Richard could see she was sick. Her skin was pale, almost grey, and she was coughing with worrying frequency. He approached slowly, as if she were a wild animal that might run away at any sudden movement. When he got closer, he could see that her lips were purple, and her breathing was labored. "Sophia?" His voice came out softer than he intended. She looked up, and he saw that her eyes shone with fever. "Hi. You're the daddy of the little boy, with the scrape." "That's right. How are you feeling?" "Not very well," she admitted, coughing again. "Grandma Dulcie said it's just a cold, but I think it's more than that." The protective instinct stirred in Richard's chest, the same instinct he felt for Gabriel. Without thinking, he put his hand on Sophia's forehead. She was burning with fever. "You're sick, Sophia. You need to see a doctor." She shook her head weakly. "We don't have money for a doctor. Grandma uses home remedies that Mommy taught her." "And where is your grandmother now?" "At home, sleeping. She's not feeling well either." Sophia tried to get up from the swing, but she staggered. Richard held her by the arms, scared by how light she was, too light for a 6-year-old. "When was the last time you ate?" Sophia thought for a moment, as if it was hard to remember. "Yesterday. I think yesterday morning. Grandma made some tea and we shared some leftover bread." Richard's stomach turned. While he and his family were having breakfast on fine china, his possible daughter was going hungry not far away. "Now come with me," he said, making an impulsive decision. "Let's get you some food and medicine." "I can't take it," Sophia murmured, but her voice lacked conviction. "Grandma says we shouldn't take things from strangers." "I'm not a stranger. I'm Gabriel's friend, remember? And friends take care of each other." In Sophia's feverish eyes, he saw a flash of hope. It was the same expression Marina had when he promised to take care of her forever, a promise he had broken in the most cowardly way possible. Now, looking at that frail child who carried so many similarities to the woman he had loved, Richard understood he had a second chance, a chance to do the right thing, even if it meant confronting truths he had spent years trying to forget. "Okay," Sophia sighed, letting him help her walk. "But just a little bit of food. I don't want to be a bother." As they walked together towards the car, he couldn't stop looking at her. With every step, the certainty grew in his chest like an inexorable wave. This wasn't just any child who had helped his son. This was his daughter. The restaurant Richard chose was in a discreet area of the city, far from the places his acquaintances frequented. He watched Sophia devour the bowl of soup with a hunger that broke his heart. The girl ate slowly, savoring each spoonful as if it was the last meal of her life. "Slow down, Sophia. The food isn't going anywhere," he said gently, pushing a glass of orange juice towards her. She stopped eating and looked at him with embarrassment. "Sorry, it's just really good, and it's been a long time since I've eaten somewhere nice like this." "You don't need to apologize. Eat as much as you want." Richard tried to keep his voice steady, but inside he was shattered. "Tell me more about your mother. What was her full name?" Sophia wiped her mouth with the napkin, her manners surprisingly polite for a child in her situation. "Marina Silva. She always said her name was long because she had a lot of love tucked away inside." Richard clenched his fists under the table. It was her. It was definitely Marina, only she would say something so poetic about her own name. "And your grandmother? How did you manage all these years?" Sophia's face saddened. "In the beginning, it was easier. Mummy worked at the hospital and made a little money. We lived in a small apartment, but it was ours. Then Mummy got sick." The girl's voice faltered, and she needed a few seconds to continue. "She started coughing a lot, lost her breath going upstairs. The doctor said it was because of her work at the hospital, that she breathed in a lot of bad things taking care of the sick. She couldn't work anymore, and then there was no more money to pay the rent." Richard felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Marina had sacrificed herself taking care of others, and he didn't even know she existed. Meanwhile, he was building his financial empire, completely oblivious to the suffering of the woman he had loved. "How long was your mother sick?" "About 2 years. Grandma Dulcie came to live with us to help, but she's old too and can't work. We went to live in smaller and smaller places until all that was left was the little shack we're in now." Sophia stopped eating, lost in painful memories. "In the last few months, Mommy could hardly get out of bed. But even so, she taught me things every day, like how to take care of scrapes, how to make tea for a stomach ache, how to tell when someone has a fever just by touching their forehead." "Did she ever talk about your father?" Richard knew he was treading on dangerous ground, but he needed to know. Sophia's eyes lit up for the first time since they started talking. "Oh, yes. She said my daddy was a very important man who lived in a big house and took care of a lot of people, that he was handsome and smart, and that one day he would come back for us." Richard's heart stopped. She really said that?" "Uh-huh," Sophia nodded eagerly. She always said, "One day your daddy will show up, Sophia, and when that happens, you'll know it's him because you'll feel it right here," she pointed to her chest, "that you've finally found your whole family." Richard had to wipe his eyes to keep listening. "I want you to be a brave and kind girl. Take care of people like I taught you, but don't forget to take care of yourself too. Study hard, grow strong and healthy, and never forget that you were the greatest gift in my life. When you miss me, look at the stars and know that Mommy is up there, always protecting you. With all my love, Mommy Marina." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of rain hitting the tarp that covered the shack. Sophia carefully folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. "Mommy was right," she said, looking at Richard. "I knew it was you the moment I saw you. Felt it right here," she pointed to her chest, "just like she said I would feel." Richard knelt on the damp floor and opened his arms. Sophia ran to him, and for the first time in 7 years, he hugged his daughter. She was small and frail, but when she hugged him back, Richard felt as if a part of his soul that had been lost finally came home. "I'm so sorry, Sophia," he whispered in the girl's ear. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner." "It's okay," she replied, squeezing him tightly. "Mommy said sometimes people need time to grow up. And you grew up, right? That's why you came for me." Mrs. Dulcie watched the scene with tears in her eyes. "Marina was right about you," she said. "She always said you just needed time to understand what really mattered in life." Richard looked around the miserable shack where his daughter had grown up. The dirt floor, the walls that barely protected from the cold and rain, the complete absence of any basic comfort. He thought of his mansion, with its 15 empty rooms, its Olympic-sized pool that no one used, his luxury cars parked in the garage. "You won't be living here anymore," he said, making a decision he knew would change his life forever. "I'm going to find a better place for you." "We don't want charity," Mrs. Dulcie repeated, but her voice no longer had the firmness it had before. "It's not charity. It's responsibility. Sophia is my daughter, and I've already wasted 6 years of her life. I won't waste another single day." Sophia pulled back a little to look him in the eyes. "Does this mean you're staying? That you're not going to leave like before?" The question broke Richard's heart. He could see the fear in the girl's eyes, the fear of being abandoned again, as she had been so many times in her short life. "I'm never leaving again, Sophia. I promise." A real promise, like the ones Mommy made? A real promise. And to show you I mean it. Richard took a credit card from his wallet and handed it to Mrs. Dulcie. "I want you to buy new clothes, food, medicine, everything you need." But even as he made these promises, a voice in his head whispered questions he didn't want to answer. How would he explain this to Clarissa? How would he tell Gabriel that he had a sister? How would he balance 2 families without destroying either one? Looking at Sophia, who was smiling for the first time since he had met her, Richard decided he would face those problems when the time came. For now, all that mattered was that his daughter finally knew she wasn't alone in the world. It was a sunny Thursday when Richard arrived at the park for his daily meeting with Sophia. She had asked to meet there because she wanted to show him how Gabriel was doing with his knee completely healed. An excuse they both used to spend more time together without raising suspicion. But when he got to the agreed spot, Sophia wasn't there. Richard looked around the area, his heart starting to race. He finally found her sitting under a tree, but something was terribly wrong. She was rocking back and forth, her eyes glazed over, and her breathing was rapid and shallow. "Sophia, what's happening?" He knelt beside her, touching her forehead. It was burning with fever. "Daddy?" Her voice was just a whisper. "I don't feel well. Grandma didn't wake up this morning." Richard felt panic take over. "What do you mean she didn't wake up?" She was breathing, but I couldn't wake her up. I tried to make tea like she taught me, but Sophia tried to get up, but she staggered dangerously. Calm down, honey. I'm taking you to the hospital right now. I can't go to the hospital, Sophia murmured, confused by the fever. We don't have money. Grandma always says hospital is for those who can pay. Sophia, look at me. Richard held the girl's face in his hands. You are my daughter. I can pay. I will take care of you. Before she could answer, Sophia's eyes rolled back and she fainted in her father's arms. Richard had never run so fast in his life. He carried Sophia to the car, put her in the back seat, and sped towards St. Jude's Medical Center, the best private hospital in the city. During the entire drive, he watched his daughter's labored breathing in the rearview mirror, fear gnawing at his stomach. Please, don't let me lose her too, he murmured, driving faster than he ever had before. In the hospital emergency room, Richard faced the practical consequences of his decision to take responsibility for Sophia for the first time. When the nurse asked about the girl's health insurance, he replied he would pay privately. When they asked about the mother, he said he was a widower. When they asked for documents, he had to explain that the girl had lost her documents in a fire. Each lie made him feel smaller, but there was no alternative. Sophia needed immediate medical care, and the bureaucracy would have to wait. While the doctors examined Sophia, Richard called his assistant and cancelled all his meetings for the day. Then he called Gabriel's school, making up an excuse about a family emergency. Richard? Clarissa's voice on the phone sounded worried. Isabel from the school called, said you cancelled the meeting with the teachers. Is everything okay? Yes, darling, just a problem at the office I need to handle. Are you sure? Your voice sounds strange. Yes, I am. Kiss for you guys. See, you at home. Richard hung up the phone, his hands trembling. Every lie he told dug a deeper hole between him and his family. But when he looked through the glass door and saw Sophia lying on the gurney, pale and small, he knew there was no choice. The doctor came out of the room after an hour that seemed like an eternity. Mr. Miller, I'm Dr. Carter. Your daughter has severe pneumonia and malnutrition. We'll need to admit her for a few days for treatment. Is she going to be okay? Yes, but she was at her limit. A few more days without treatment and, well, thankfully you brought her in time. Richard's legs felt weak. He had almost lost Sophia due to neglect, his own years of neglect, and the neglect of the past few days for not realizing how sick she was. Doctor, there's something else. Sophia's grandmother, who lives with her, is also sick. I'd like someone to go check on her. We can arrange that. Where do they live? Richard gave the address of the shack, seeing the doctor's expression change as he described the location. Mr. Miller, forgive the question, but are these living conditions temporary? Yes, they are. I'm arranging for them to move. 2 hours later, the ambulance brought Mrs. Dulcie to the same hospital. She was conscious but extremely weak. The diagnosis was advanced bacterial pneumonia and severe dehydration. Richard found himself running between 2 rooms, taking care of 2 people he had barely known for a month, but who were already more important to him than any business deal he had ever closed in his life. It was when he was leaving Mrs. Dulcie's room that he received the call that would change everything. Richard, where the hell are you? Clarissa's voice was altered. Marcos called looking for you. Said you didn't show up for the meeting with the Japanese investors. A $50 million meeting, Richard. I can explain. And that's not all. I went to pick up Gabriel from school, and his teacher asked if everything was okay at home. She said Gabriel has been talking a lot about a sister who takes care of scrapes. What sister, Richard? Richard closed his eyes. The house of cards he had been building was collapsing. Clarissa, I need to tell you something, but not over the phone. You are going to tell me now. What is happening? Where are you? Richard looked around the hospital corridor. at the doors of the rooms where his daughter and his mother-in-law were fighting pneumonia at the life he had discovered existed only a month ago. I'm at St. Jude's Medical Center, and yes, I have something very important to tell you. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When Clarissa spoke again, her voice was icy. I'm coming there now, and Richard, this had better have a very good explanation. As he waited for Clarissa to arrive, Richard realized that the turning point he had feared had finally arrived. There was no longer any way to keep his two worlds separate. In a few hours, his carefully built life would be put to the test in a way he had never imagined possible. Clarissa arrived at St. Jude's Medical Center like a storm in a designer dress. Her heels echoed on the marble floor as she looked for Richard, her face a mask of contained fury. When she found him sitting in a chair beside room 312, she stopped in front of him, arms crossed. "Explain. Now!" Richard stood up slowly, noticing that other people in the hallway were starting to look in their direction. "Clarissa, please, let's talk in private." "No, say it right here. Who is in this room? Why are you here? And what's this story about Gabriel having a sister?" Through the glass door of the room, Sophia was sleeping, connected to machines, her small body almost disappearing between the white sheets of the hospital bed. Richard saw the exact moment Clarissa noticed the girl. "Who is this child?" Her voice dropped, but the anger remained. "It's Sophia. She's my daughter." The words came out like a shot in the silence of the hallway. Clarissa blinked several times, as if she hadn't heard correctly. "What do you mean, your daughter? What kind of joke is this, Richard?" "It's not a joke. Sophia is 6 years old. I met her a month ago when she helped Gabriel at the park. She's the daughter of a woman I had a relationship with before I met you." Clarissa took a step back, the color draining from her face. "Before you met me? We've been together for 5 years, Richard. This child is 6. I know how it looks, but how it looks." Clarissa's voice went up an octave. "It looks like you had a daughter with another woman and hid it from me all these years. It looks like you're a liar." Several people in the hallway stopped to watch the argument. A nurse approached discreetly. "Please keep your voices down. Patients are resting." Clarissa took a deep breath, trying to control herself. "Let's go to the chapel now." The hospital chapel was small and empty. Clarissa sat on the first pew, her hands trembling with anger. Richard stood in front of her, knowing that any wrong word could blow up his marriage. "Tell me everything, from the beginning, and don't leave anything out." Richard started telling her about Marina, about the relationship they had, about how he ran away when she started talking about commitment. He told her about the farewell note, about how he changed his phone number and address to avoid complications. "I didn't know about the pregnancy, Clarissa. I swear I didn't know." "Lie!" Clarissa stood up, her eyes shining with tears of rage. "Nobody just disappears like that. You did know, and you chose to abandon her." "That's not true. Marina never told me." "Because you didn't give her a chance. You ran away like a coward." Clarissa started pacing the chapel. "And now you decide you want to play daddy? Where do we fit into this, Richard? Where does Gabriel fit in?" "Gabriel is my son too. This changes nothing between us." "Changes nothing?" Clarissa stopped in front of him, incredulous. "You have a 6-year-old daughter, a daughter who grew up in poverty while you built your fortune, and you think that changes nothing?" Richard tried to approach her, but she backed away. "Clarissa, I know it's hard to understand, but Sophia needs me. She and her grandmother were living in a shack without food, without medical care. I can't turn my back on her again." "Again?" Clarissa laughed bitterly. "You already turned away once. What guarantees you won't turn away again when things get hard?" "Because I learned, because I saw what my cowardice caused." "And what am I supposed to do with this? Pretend everything is okay? Accept your bastard daughter into our family?" The word bastard hit Richard like a punch. Don't talk about her like that. Sophia is an innocent child. And Gabriel, what do I tell my son? That his father has a secret family that's more important than us? It's not more important. It's different. Gabriel will always be my son, just like Sophia always was. The question was loaded with venom. How many other children are out there, Richard? How many other women did you abandon pregnant? Just Marina. Just Sophia. And I will never abandon either of my children again. Clarissa sat down again, covering her face with her hands. When she looked at him again, there were tears in her eyes. I don't know if I can do this, Richard. I don't know if I can live with the fact that you hid this from me, that you are capable of abandoning a child. I was young, I'm mature. People change, Clarissa. They change? Or do they just pretend they've changed when it's convenient? She stood up and walked towards the door. I need time to think. Clarissa, wait. No. She stopped without turning. Around. I'm going to pick up Gabriel from school, and we're going to stay at my mother's house for a few days. When you decide what you really want from life, whether you want to be Gabriel's father or play hero with your lost daughter, call me. I want both. I want to be a father to both of them. Clarissa turned around one last time, her face wet with tears. Maybe you want to, Richard, but wanting and getting are very different things, and I won't let Gabriel suffer because of your past choices. The chapel door closed with a dull sound, and Richard was left alone, feeling as though his whole world had collapsed in a matter of minutes. When he went back to Sophia's room, he found the girl awake, looking out the window. "Daddy, who was that pretty lady yelling at you?" Richard sat down in the chair beside the bed, holding Sophia's small hand. That was Clarissa, Daddy's wife. Was she mad because you came to take care of me? The simple question carried a painful wisdom. Richard kissed his daughter's forehead, without knowing how to answer without lying. A week had passed since the confrontation at the hospital. Richard divided his time between visiting Sophia, who was recovering quickly, and trying to talk to Clarissa, who refused to answer his calls. Gabriel remained at his maternal grandmother's house, and Richard could only see him during the supervised visits that Clarissa allowed, an hour a day, always in her presence. It was a rainy Friday when Sophia was discharged from the hospital. Richard had rented a small but decent apartment in a middle-class area where she and Mrs. Dulcie, who was also recovering, could live with comfort and security. Is this where we're going to live? Sophia looked around the two-bedroom apartment, her eyes shining with wonder. For a child who had grown up in a 30-square-foot shack, that space seemed like a palace. It is, Princess. And look, Richard, open the door to the smaller bedroom. This is your room, all yours. Sophia walked in slowly, touching everything with reverence. The twin bed with floral sheets, the small desk, the bookshelf with some children's books that Richard had bought. Really? Just mine? Just yours. And when Grandma Dulcie gets out of the hospital, she'll have her own room too. Sophia ran to him and hugged him tightly. Thank you, Daddy. Mommy was right. You're the kindest person in the world. The comment should have made Richard happy, but it only increased the weight of guilt he carried. If he were as good as Marina had said, he would have been there since Sophia was born. As they put away the new clothes they had bought, Richard's phone rang. It was an unknown number. Richard Miller. Yes. My name is Oswald Jones, private investigator. I'm calling because your wife, Clarissa Miller, hired me to investigate your recent activities. Richard felt his blood run cold. Investigate? How? Photos, documents, records of where you've been in the last few weeks. I'm sorry to inform you that we found out about your daughter Sophia and also about Marina Silva. I have medical records, birth certificate here, and several photos of you coming and going from the apartment where the lady lives now. What does Clarissa intend to do with this information? You'll have to ask her that, but I can tell you beforehand that she seemed very interested in the timeline of events, especially during the period when Mrs. Marina tried to contact you in 2018. The investigator made a significant pause. Mr. Miller, I found records of 3 calls that Mrs. Marina made to your office in January 2018, all logged at reception as urgent personal matter. There are also records of her having gone personally to your old apartment in February of the same year, where she spoke with the doorman asking about your whereabouts. Richard sat down heavily on the sofa. Clarissa now had proof that Marina had tried to contact him and that he had consciously run away. Is there anything else I should know? Yes, sir. Your wife also asked me to investigate recent financial transactions. The expenses for the hospital, apartment, clothes, everything is documented. And there are photos of you with the girl in various public places. After he hung up, Richard sat in silence, trying to process the implications. Clarissa wasn't just angry, she was building a case against him. Daddy? Why are you sad? Sophia approached, worried. I'm not sad, honey. Just thinking about some things. Is it because of your wife? Doesn't she like me? Sophia's direct question caught him off guard. Why do you ask that? Because you get sad every time you talk to her on the phone, and because she yelled at you at the hospital. Sophia sat down next to him on the sofa. Mommy taught me that when grown-ups fight because of kids, it's because they don't know how to share love. What else did your mother teach you about that? That love doesn't run out when you share it. Like food, when you share it, everyone is happier. Sophia put her little hand on his. You can share your love between me and your other little boy. I won't be jealous. Richard hugged his daughter, admiring her wisdom. And what if she can't share? What if she thinks there's no room for you in her life? Sophia thought for a moment. Then maybe she needs time to learn. Mommy always said some people need more time to understand the important things. That night, after putting Sophia to sleep in her new bed, Richard received a call that confirmed his worst fears. Richard? Clarissa's voice was cold, controlled. I need to talk to you. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. at my lawyer's office. Clarissa, can we talk first? At home, just the two of us? There's nothing more to talk about. I found out Marina tried to contact you several times when she was pregnant. I found out you consciously ran away, changed your address and phone number so you wouldn't have to take responsibility. Clarissa, I can explain. You've already explained everything. With your actions. Her voice trembled slightly. Tomorrow, we'll discuss the terms of the divorce and Gabriel's custody. Divorce? Clarissa, you can't do this. Gabriel needs his father. Gabriel needs a father he can trust. A father who doesn't abandon his children when life gets complicated. She paused. And Richard, if you try to make this process difficult, I'll make the whole story about Marina and Sophia public. Imagine the headlines. Millionaire businessman abandons pregnant lover, reunites with daughter 6 years later. Your reputation and your businesses won't survive the scandal. The line went dead, leaving Richard in the silence of the new apartment. Through the window, he could see the city lights, a city where he had built a financial empire that now threatened to collapse. From the next room came the sounds of Sophia's quiet breathing, finally sleeping safely for the first time in years. Richard realized he was facing the most difficult choice of his life. Fight for Gabriel and risk losing everything, including the ability to care for Sophia, or accept Clarissa's terms and give up the son he had raised since he was a baby. Whatever decision he made, one of his children would be hurt, and this time there was no running away from the consequences. Clarissa's lawyer's office was on the top floor of a mirrored skyscraper downtown. Richard arrived promptly at 9 in the morning, but found Clarissa already settled in a leather armchair, a briefcase full of documents beside her. She wore a black suit that made her look more like a ruthless executive than the woman he had shared 5 years of his life with. "Richard," she greeted coldly without standing up. "Clarissa." He sat in the armchair next to her, keeping his distance. The lawyer, a middle-aged man with gold-rimmed glasses, organized the papers on the desk. "Mr. Miller, my name is Dr. Arthur Thompson. I represent your wife in this dissolution of marriage proceeding." "A proceeding I did not authorize," Richard replied. "You don't need your authorization," Clarissa interjected. "Adultery and child abandonment are sufficient grounds for contested divorce." "Adultery? Clarissa, Sophia was conceived before we met. But you took her on as your daughter during our marriage, spending family money, lying about your whereabouts, building a double life." Dr. Thompson pushed a folder towards Richard. "We have photos, receipts, call logs, everything properly documented." Richard leafed through the documents, recognizing every moment of the past few days, photographed and catalogued. There were photos of him entering the shack, carrying Sophia to the hospital, buying her clothes, renting the apartment. "You followed me as if I were a criminal. You lied as if you were one," Clarissa retorted. "Every day that passed without telling me about Sophia was a betrayal. Every dollar you spent on her was a theft from our family." "She's my daughter, Clarissa. I had a moral obligation to help her." "An obligation you completely ignored for 6 years. Clarissa's voice rose a pitch. "Where was this moral obligation when she was born, when Marina died, when Sophia went hungry?" Dr. Thompson intervened before the argument escalated. "Let's discuss the terms. Mrs. Miller is willing to accept an amicable settlement if you agree to our conditions." "What conditions?" Clarissa leaned forward, her eyes shining with cold determination. "First, you keep 40% of the marital assets. I keep 60% in the house." 40%? Richard stood up. "Clarissa, you don't work. I built this fortune myself. With my emotional support, my running of the household, my care for Gabriel. Besides, you're going to need money to support your other family." The sarcasm in her voice was cutting. "Second condition," Dr. Thompson continued, "supervised visits with Gabriel. Twice a week, 2 hours each, always in the presence of the mother or a person designated by her." "That's absurd. Gabriel is my son." "Gabriel is the son of a man who abandoned a child for 6 years, Clarissa replied. "How can I trust that you won't abandon him too when the next moral obligation arises?" "Third condition," the lawyer proceeded relentlessly, "absolute confidentiality on the grounds for divorce. If you or anyone close to you leaks information to the press, the agreement will be nullified and will move to public litigation. And fourth condition," Clarissa stood up and walked to the window, "you can never, ever introduce Sophia to Gabriel. You can never mention that he has a sister. If you do, you will completely lose visitation rights." This last condition hit Richard like a stab wound. "Clarissa, they're siblings. They have a right to know each other. Gabriel has a right to a stable childhood without being bombarded with the messes you created." She turned to face him. "Choose, Richard. Either you are Gabriel's father under our terms, or you are no one's father." Richard looked at the documents spread across the table, each page representing a piece of his life being dissected and redistributed. "And if I don't accept?" Dr. Thompson opened another folder. "Then we move to contested litigation. We'll allege child abandonment, inappropriate conduct, misrepresentation of assets. The process will be public with full press coverage." "Imagine the headlines, Richard." Clarissa sat down again, her voice dangerously calm. "Millionaire businessman leads. Double life, rich man abandons daughter in poverty. Husband lies to wife for years. Your businesses won't survive. the lawyer added. Clients will cancel contracts, partners will dissolve partnerships. You'll lose much more than 50% of the assets. You'll lose everything. Richard closed his eyes, trying to process the situation. Clarissa had planned everything meticulously, leaving him no escape. I need time to think. You have until Monday. Clarissa stood up, collecting her purse. After that, we file for litigation. Clarissa, wait. Richard stood up too. What I did was wrong, I admit it, but Gabriel needs his father, and you used to be different. You used to be compassionate, understanding. She stopped at the door without turning around. I was compassionate with the man I thought I knew, not with the stranger I discovered you are. And Sophia, an innocent child who just wants a family. Sophia isn't my problem. She's a consequence of your choices. Now she turned around and Richard saw tears in her eyes for the first time. You chose to abandon her 6 years ago. You chose to lie to me. You chose to put her above our family. Now choose who you want to be with. After she left, Richard was left alone in the office with Dr. Thompson, who was organizing the papers with clinical efficiency. May I offer some unsolicited advice, Mr. Miller? You may. Accept the settlement. Your wife is determined to destroy you if necessary, and when a wounded woman has that determination, he shook his head, she usually succeeds. Richard left the building walking like a zombie. On the street, the normal city bustle contrasted with the chaos in his mind. People went to work, children went to school, life went on while his was falling apart. When he arrived at Sophia's apartment, he found her drawing at the living room table. She had made a drawing of the whole family, her, Grandma Dulcie, Richard, Gabriel, and even Clarissa, all smiling and holding hands. Do you like it, Daddy? It's for when we meet for real. Richard looked at the drawing and felt his heart break. Sophia dreamed of a united family that might never exist. And in 3 days, he would have to choose which of the 2 children in the drawing would remain in his life. Sunday dawned grey, matching Richard's mood. It was the last day before Clarissa's ultimatum, and he still hadn't made a decision. He spent the whole night walking around the apartment, looking alternately at Sophia's drawing of the whole family and at the photo of Gabriel he carried in his wallet. Sophia was in the kitchen trying to make breakfast. Since they moved into the apartment, she had insisted on helping with the household chores, as if she wanted to repay all the kindness she had received. Daddy, did you sleep poorly again? She placed a glass of orange juice in front of him, worried. A little, princess, but don't worry about me. Mommy used to say when grown-ups can't sleep, it's because they're carrying very heavy problems alone. Sophia sat beside him. Do you want to talk about the heavy problem? Richard looked at that 6-year-old girl who spoke with the wisdom of someone much older. It's complicated, Sophia. Sometimes grown-ups have to make very difficult choices. About me and Gabriel. The direct question surprised him. Why do you think that? Because you get sad every time you talk to Clarissa. And because you have his photo in your wallet, but you never brought him here to meet me. Sophia stirred her juice with the straw. He doesn't want to meet me? It's not that, honey. It's complicated. Mommy always said things only get complicated when grown-ups make them complicated. Kids always find a way to be friends. Before Richard could answer, his phone rang. It was Clarissa, and her voice was altered. Richard, Gabriel is missing. What do you mean missing? He left his room this morning saying he was going to play in my mother's yard. When I went to look, he wasn't there. We've already looked all over the neighborhood. Richard stood up immediately. Have you called the police? I just did, but Richard, I found a note in his room. He wrote that he went looking for the sister who takes care of scrapes. Richard's heart stopped. Is he coming here? I don't. No, he's a 4-year-old child, Richard. He doesn't even know his address properly. I'm going out to look. If he shows up there, call me immediately. Richard hung up and turned to Sophia, who had heard the whole conversation. Gabriel ran away to find me. Her eyes filled with tears. He might get hurt. We'll find him, Princess. Put on a coat. Let's go out. They searched the streets of the neighborhood, asking store owners and doormen if they had seen a blonde child alone. Richard called Clarissa every 15 minutes, but there was no news. It was Sophia who had the bad idea. Daddy, what if he went to the park where we met? Maybe he thinks I'm there. Richard slapped his forehead. Of course, Magnolia Park. They drove in tense silence to the park. Richard scanned every corner with his eyes, panic growing with every second that passed. And then Sophia shouted, "There, under that tree!" Gabriel was sitting in the same spot where Sophia had taken care of his knee a month ago. He was crying softly, his eyes red and swollen. When he saw Richard approaching, he ran to him. "Daddy, I wanted to find Sophia!" Richard picked him up, feeling relief flood his body. "Gabriel, you scared everyone so much. Why did you go out alone?" "Because you never bring Sophia to see me, and I wanted to play with her." Gabriel sniffled. "Grandma said you don't live with us anymore because of her, and I wanted to meet her." Richard looked at Sophia, who had approached slowly as if afraid of scaring Gabriel. The two siblings looked at each other for the first time since that day in the park. "Hi," Sophia said softly. "You're Gabriel, right? From the scraped knee." "Hi, are you my sister?" "Yes, I am. You've grown a lot since that day." Gabriel held out his hand to Sophia. "Want to see? It doesn't hurt anymore." He showed his knee. "It's just like new." Sophia smiled, gently touching Gabriel's knee. "It's perfect. You're very brave." "You're brave too. Daddy said you took care of me when I was crying." Richard watched the scene with a heavy heart. It was exactly as Marina had said it would be. The kids found a way to be friends, while the grown-ups complicated everything. His phone rang. It was Clarissa. "Did you find him?" "I found him. He's okay. We're at Magnolia Park." "I'm coming there now." "Clarissa, wait. He's meeting Sophia. Let them talk for a bit." "Don't even think about it. You're violating our agreement." "What agreement? I haven't signed anything yet." Richard stepped away from the children. "Clarissa, look what happened. Gabriel ran away from home because he wanted to meet his sister. Doesn't that tell you anything?" "It tells me you filled his head with these ideas." "I never told Gabriel about Sophia. He found out on his own, overhearing conversations. Kids are smarter than we think." When he turned, he saw Gabriel and Sophia sitting side by side on the grass, talking animatedly. Gabriel was making little airplanes out of leaves, and Sophia was teaching him how to tell if someone had a fever just by touching their forehead. "Daddy," Gabriel called him. "Sophia is very smart. She knows how to take care of scrapes like a doctor." "And Gabriel is very funny," Sophia added. "He told me jokes he learned at school." Richard knelt between the two of them. "Gabriel, you can't go out alone like that. Your mother was very worried." "Sorry, Daddy, but I really wanted to meet my sister." Gabriel looked at Sophia. "Do you want to come play at my house?" "I'd love to, but what?" Gabriel asked, innocent. Sophia looked at Richard, who didn't know how to answer. How to explain to a 4-year-old child that the adult world sometimes didn't allow siblings to be siblings? That's when they heard hurried footsteps on the grass. Clarissa was approaching, her face a mask of fury and concern. "Gabriel, how could you do this to me?" She ran and picked him up, checking if he was hurt. "Mum, calm down. Nothing happened. I just wanted to meet my sister." Clarissa looked at Sophia up close for the first time. The girl was standing beside Richard, clearly intimidated by the presence of the woman who had yelled at her father at the hospital. "Hi," Sophia said softly. "You're Gabriel's mommy, right? He's very well behaved. You taught him well." The child's simplicity and kindness seemed to disarm Clarissa for a moment. She looked at Sophia, really looked, and saw not a threat, but a little girl who just wanted to have a family. "Mom," Gabriel pulled Clarissa's face so she would look at him. "Can I play with Sophia sometimes? She promised to teach me how to take care of scrapes." Clarissa looked from Gabriel to Sophia, then to Richard. And for the first time in weeks, the anger in her eyes gave way to something he couldn't identify. "Let's go home, Gabriel. We have a lot to talk about." On Monday morning, Richard woke up early, knowing that in a few hours he would need to give Clarissa his final answer. The meeting between Gabriel and Sophia at the park had changed something in the family dynamic, but he didn't know exactly what. Clarissa hadn't called since she took Gabriel away on Sunday, and the silence bothered her more than any threat. He was having coffee when he received a call from the hospital. Mrs. Dulcie had a relapse during the night and was asking to speak with him urgently. "Daddy, is Grandma sick again?" Sophia asked, seeing the worry on his face. "Let's go to the hospital to see how she's doing, okay?" At the hospital, they found Mrs. Dulce awake, but visibly frail. Doctors had informed them that she was stable, but needed absolute rest. "Richard," she called in a weak voice when she saw them enter the room. "I need to talk to you. Sophia, my dear, can you go get a juice from the cafeteria? I want to talk." "Oh, to your father alone." After Sophia left, Mrs. Dulcie gestured for Richard to approach the bed. "I know about the problem with your wife. Sophia told me you're fighting because of her. Mrs. Dulcie, you don't need to worry about that now. You need to focus on getting better. Listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you." Her voice gained unexpected strength. "Yesterday, after you left, I had a visitor. Your wife came here." Richard straightened up in his chair. "Clarissa was here? She wanted to meet me. Said she needed to understand who we were." Mrs. Dulce coughed a little before continuing. "In the beginning, she was hard, cold, just like you described her. But then I told her about Marina." "What? Did you tell her? The truth, the whole truth?" The old woman's eyes filled with tears. "I told her how Marina loved you, Richard, how she cried every night after you disappeared, how she found out she was pregnant and became desperate, not knowing what to do." Richard felt his chest tighten. "Did you tell her about her attempts to find me?" "I told her everything, how she went to your apartment and found out you had moved without telling her, how she called your work and they said you didn't want to talk to her, how she tried to find you for months." "And what did Clarissa say?" Mrs. Dulcie held Richard's hand with surprising strength. "She cried, Richard, cried like a child, because she understood that Marina didn't want to destroy your marriage. Marina wanted to give you the chance to choose." "What do you mean?" "Marina knew you were afraid of commitment. She told me you fought on the last night because of that. So when she found out she was pregnant, she decided to give you time to grow, to mature. She believed that if it was true love, you would come back on your own." Richard closed his eyes, tears finally overcoming his resistance. "But I didn't come back." "No, you didn't come back." Mrs. Dulcie squeezed his hand. "But Marina never hated you for it. She used to say some people need more time to understand what really matters in life." "And Sophia? What did you tell Clarissa about Sophia?" "I said Sophia isn't a threat to your family. I said she just wants to have a father, like any child. And that she has such a big heart that she has plenty of love to share with a sibling." Mrs. Dulcie paused, breathing with difficulty. "Your wife was here for 2 hours, Richard. 2 hours listening to stories about Marina, about Sophia, about you. And in the end, she asked me a question." "What question?" "She asked, if Marina loved Richard so much, why did she never fight for him? And I answered, because true love sometimes means letting the person be free to choose. Marina left you free, hoping you would choose to come back to her." Richard could no longer hold back the tears. And what did Clarissa say? She said she understood why you fell in love with Marina, and that she understood why Sophia is so special. Mrs. Dulcie smiled weakly. And then she asked me for something that surprised me. What? She asked me to tell her how Marina died. She wanted to know if she suffered, if she was alone, if she said anything before passing. Richard held his breath. I told her Marina passed peacefully, Richard. I told her that in the last few days she used to say she saw you arriving to pick up Sophia, that she dreamed of you every day and woke up happy as if you had met again. Marina dreamed about me every night, and she would tell Sophia, your daddy will arrive. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but he will arrive. And when he does, you'll know he's the right person because you'll feel it here. And she pointed to her heart. Mrs. Dulcie tried to sit up in bed, leaning on her elbows. Richard, your wife left here yesterday crying, but not from anger, from sadness. Sadness for Marina, for Sophia, for this whole situation. And she told me something before she left. What did she say? Said she was going to think about everything she heard, that she was going to talk to Gabriel about having a sister, and that maybe you could find a way to be a different kind of family, but still a family. At that moment, Sophia came back with the juice, immediately noticing that something important had happened between the two adults. Grandma, why is Daddy crying? Because sometimes grown-ups cry when they finally understand the important things in life, my dear. Sophia approached Richard and wiped his tears with her shirt sleeve. Don't cry, Daddy. Mommy used to say after the rain always comes a rainbow. That's when Richard's phone rang. It was Clarissa. Richard, can we talk? Not at the lawyer's office. At home. Gabriel and I want to talk to you. Clarissa, about the agreement. Forget the agreement. I need to tell you something I found out yesterday. Something about Marina that changed everything. When Richard hung up, Mrs. Dulcie smiled for the first time in days. Go, Richard, go talk to your family and take Sophia with you. It's time for her to see where her brother lives. Sophia's eyes widened. Really, Daddy? I'm going to see Gabriel's house. Richard looked at the two of them, the wise old woman who had opened Clarissa's eyes to the truth, and the girl who had inherited her mother's generous heart. Maybe, just maybe, Mrs. Dulcie had achieved the miracle he thought was impossible. Maybe there was still hope for his extended family. The Miller mansion had never seemed as imposing to Richard as it did at that moment, with Sophia by his side, admiring the well-tended gardens and the elegant facade. She wore her prettiest dress, a light blue dress Richard had bought for her the week before, and was holding his hand tightly, nervous about seeing her brother's house. Is this where Gabriel lives? She asked, impressed. It is, Princess. This is where I lived too before all this happened. It's very big. Gabriel must feel lonely sometimes in such a big house. Sophia's simple observation hit Richard hard. Gabriel had always seemed truly lost in that enormous mansion, preferring to stick close to his parents rather than explore the 15 empty rooms. Clarissa opened the door before they rang the doorbell. She had been crying, Richard could see by her swollen eyes, but there was something different in her demeanor. The rigidity had given way to a vulnerability he hadn't seen in a long time. Hi, she said softly, looking first at Richard, then at Sophia. You came. You're even prettier up close, Sophia said with childlike sincerity. Gabriel is lucky to have such a beautiful mommy. Clarissa blinked a few times, clearly not expecting this reaction. Thank you, Sophia. You are very beautiful too. Gabriel appeared running from the back of the house, wearing a superhero t-shirt and a smile that lit up the whole room. Sophia, you really came. He stopped in front of his sister, suddenly a little shy. Do you want to see my room? I have a lot of toys we can play with together. I'd love to see your room, Gabriel, but can I? Gabriel looked at Clarissa, who nodded. Yes, you can. Go play. Your father and I need to talk. The two children went up the stairs hand in hand, Gabriel chattering about his favorite toys and Sophia asking polite questions about everything she saw. Clarissa and Richard stayed in the living room, an awkward silence settling between them. I talked to Mrs. Dulcie yesterday, Clarissa said finally. She told me. Thank you for going there. I needed to understand, Richard. I needed to know who these people were that appeared in our lives. Clarissa sat on the sofa, gesturing for him to sit down too. Mrs. Dulcie told me about Marina. And what did you think? That I was an idiot. Tears returned to Clarissa's eyes. Marina truly loved you, Richard. And you were too cowardly to see it at the time. Richard lowered his head. I know. I was a complete idiot. But Marina forgave you. Even after everything, she never hated you. And she taught Sophia to love you even before you showed up. Clarissa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. How can a woman have such a generous heart? Marina was always special. She was the most generous person I've ever known. And Sophia inherited that from her. Clarissa looked towards the stairs, from where the children's laughter came. Yesterday, when I saw her at the park, when I saw how she treated Gabriel, I realized I was angry at the wrong person. Clarissa, let me speak, Richard. She turned to face him completely. I was angry at Sophia, but Sophia is just a child who wants to have a family. I was angry at Marina, but Marina just loved you until the end. The person I should have been angry with was you. You have every right to be angry with me. Yes, I do. You lied to me, hid Sophia, created all this mess. Clarissa took a deep breath. But after talking to Mrs. Dulcie, I understood something. You didn't do this out of malice. You did it because you finally grew up and understood what it means to be responsible for someone. Richard looked at her, hopeful. Does that mean? It means we need to talk about how we're going to make this work. Clarissa stood up and walked to the window. Gabriel wants to meet his sister. Sophia clearly wants to have a family. And you want to be a father to both of them. More than anything in the world. Then we're going to have to learn to be a different kind of family than we planned. She turned to him. It won't be easy, Richard. It will be complicated, confusing at times. But if that's what our children need, our children. Clarissa smiled for the first time in weeks, a small but genuine smile. Sophia will need a mother figure, won't she? And Mrs. LJ won't live forever. From upstairs they heard Gabriel shouting excitedly, Sophia, look how fast my car runs. And Sophia's answer, wow, that's cool. Can you teach me how to play? I've never had toys like this. Sure, and you can teach me how to take care of real scrapes. Clarissa and Richard exchanged a look, both smiling as they heard the ease with which the children built their friendship. We have conditions, Clarissa said, sitting down again. First, no more lies. Ever. If there's anything I need to know, you tell me. Agreed. Second, Sophia comes here on weekends. She and Gabriel need to really get to know each other, and I need to learn to be a stepmother. Clarissa, you don't have to. Yes, I do. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it. Right. She wiped away another tear. Third, you come home. Back here. We are a family, Richard, even if it's a different kind of family than we imagined. What about the divorce? What divorce? Do you think I'm going to let you get away again? You've had your share of running away for a lifetime. Richard stood up and knelt in front of her, holding her hands. Clarissa, are you sure? It won't be easy. I'm sure. Mrs. Dulcie made me see something yesterday. She said Marina taught you about true love, but that Marina left before she could teach you about family. Now it's my turn to teach you." At that moment, Gabriel and Sophia came running down the stairs. "Mom! Dad!" Gabriel stopped in front of them, holding Sophia's hand. "Can Sophia sleep over tonight? I want to show her the shows on the big TV. Can I really?" Sophia looked hopefully at Clarissa. Clarissa looked at that girl, the bright brown eyes, the shy but hopeful smile, the small hand holding Gabriel's tightly. And for the first time, she didn't see a threat or a complication. She saw her daughter. "Yes, you can, Sophia. You can even choose a room to be yours for when you come to visit us." "Really?" Sophia let go of Gabriel's hand and ran to Clarissa, hugging her around the waist. "Thank you. Thank you for letting me be Gabriel's sister." Clarissa looked over Sophia's head at Richard, who had tears in his eyes. Maybe Mrs. Dulcie was right. Maybe some wounds could only be healed when one had the courage to open their heart to love, even when that love came in unexpected forms. "You're welcome, Sophia. Welcome to our family." 5 weeks had passed since that first meeting at Magnolia Park. Richard parked in the same spot as always, but this time he wasn't alone. Gabriel jumped out of the back seat, followed by Sophia, both carrying a backpack with toys and a children's medical kit that Clarissa had bought for them. "Can I teach Gabriel how to do a bandage properly today?" Sophia asked, adjusting the pink hairband that held her hair back. A gift from Clarissa the week before. "Sure, Princess, but remember, only with dolls. Don't get hurt on purpose to practice." Richard smiled, watching how the two children had become inseparable. "Dad, are you coming to play with us?" Gabriel asked, holding out his hand to him. "In a bit. First, I'm going to visit Grandma Dulcie." Mrs. Dulcie had left the hospital the week before and now lived in an excellent quality nursing home, paid for by Richard. She had insisted that she didn't want to disrupt the new family, but everyone knew the real reason was to give space for Sophia to adapt to life in the mansion. "Send Grandma a kiss," Sophia asked, "and tell her that today I'm going to tell her how Gabriel taught me how to ride a bike." Richard walked to the bench where the children were setting up their toy hospital. Sophia organized the materials with the same precision she had used to take care of Gabriel's knee weeks ago, while Gabriel arranged his little soldiers as patients who needed care. "Dr. Gabriel," Sophia said with feigned seriousness, "this soldier here has a fever. What do we do?" "Dr. Sophia, let's take his temperature." Gabriel put a toy thermometer on the soldier's forehead. "Wow, he's really hot. We need to give him medicine and apply compresses." Richard watched the scene, his heart overflowing with a happiness he hadn't felt in years. The two children played with a naturalness that made it seem like they had always been siblings. At the nursing home, he found Mrs. Dulcie sitting on the porch, knitting a small sweater. "Who is this sweater for, Mrs. Dulcie?" "For Sophia. Winter is coming, and she always felt very cold." The old woman smiled. "How are things? At home? Better than I could have dreamed. Clarissa enrolled Sophia in the same school as Gabriel. They'll be studying together starting next week." "And how is Clarissa handling everything?" Richard sat down in the chair beside her. "Better than I expected. Yesterday I found her teaching Sophia how to brush her hair, and the two were laughing, like real mother and daughter. Clarissa has a generous heart. She just needed time to understand that love doesn't diminish when it's shared." "You knew this was going to happen, didn't you? When you talked to her at the hospital?" Mrs. Dulcie gave a mysterious smile. "I saw the same in her eyes that Marina saw in yours, fear of loving and being hurt again. But I also saw that she loved Gabriel enough to want him to be happy, and Gabriel is happy. Both of them are. And you, Richard, are you happy?" Richard thought about that morning, Sophia and Gabriel playing in the yard while Clarissa prepared breakfast, humming softly. The house that had always seemed too big was now full of laughter and conversations. Even work had become less important. He was learning to delegate responsibilities, to spend more time with family. "I'm happier than I deserve, Mrs. Dulcie. Marina would be proud of you. She always knew you would grow up. You just needed time." From the backpack beside the chair, Mrs. Dulcie took out a yellowed envelope. "I have something for you. I found it among Marina's things that were stored away." Richard opened the envelope carefully. It was a photo he didn't remember taking. Marina pregnant, smiling at the camera, a hand on her rounded belly. On the back, written in her delicate handwriting, "For Rick, our princess is arriving. Eternal love, Marina." "Did she take this photo herself?" Richard asked, his voice choked. "No, I took it. It was in the last month of her pregnancy. She said she wanted a photo to show Sophia when she grew up, to tell her about the father who would come back one day." Richard held the photo carefully, as if it were made of crystal. "Marina really believed I would come back. Until the last day. Even sick, even struggling, she would say, 'Rick will show up, Mom. I know he will.' When he returned to the park, he found a scene he would forever keep in his memory. Sophia was teaching Gabriel how to put a bandage on a doll's knee, while other children approached curiously. A little girl had really hurt herself falling off the slide, and Sophia, with Gabriel's supervision, was gently cleaning the wound. "It won't hurt," Sophia reassured the child. "My mommy taught me that when you take care of a scrape with kindness, it heals faster. And my sister is the best scrape caretaker in the world," Gabriel added proudly. Richard approached slowly, taking out his phone to photograph the scene. He wanted to show Clarissa how Sophia had taught Gabriel to take care of others, a skill Marina had passed down to her, and that was now spreading like ripples on a lake. "Daddy?" Sophia ran to him when she finished taking care of the little girl. "Gabriel helped me take care of a real child. He's learning fast." "I see, Princess. You make a great team." "Just like you and Mommy used to make?" Sophia asked, innocent. Richard looked at her, at Gabriel, at the other children playing around. He thought about Marina, who had planted seeds of love and care in Sophia. He thought about Clarissa, who had chosen to open her heart to a child who wasn't biologically hers. He thought about Mrs. Dulcie, who had forgiven years of neglect to give the rebuilt family a chance. "Yes, Sophia, just like your mommy and I used to make, and just like the four of us make now." "The four of us?" "You, me, Gabriel and Clarissa. We are a family, even if it's different than what I imagined." Sophia smiled, that smile that lit up everything around, just like Marina's. Mommy was right. After the rain always comes a rainbow. Richard looked at the sky, where the afternoon clouds gave way to the sun. In his hands, he held the photo of Marina pregnant, and by his side, the two children he had learned to love in different ways, but equally deeply. Some wounds from the past could only be healed when one had the courage to face the truth, and true love sometimes required sacrifices that seemed impossible. But Sophia had proven that compassion and care were more valuable inheritances than any material fortune. She had started the story by taking care of a physical scrape and ended up healing the emotional wounds of an entire family. And Richard finally understood that some people come into our lives not to complicate them, but to teach us the true meaning of home.